Good morning. Pleasure to be back in Warsaw and in Central Europe. I always enjoy visits here. If you find my English strange, it's because it's a mixture of Swedish English, Indian, Tamil English, and a virus that has caught me and further made it complex. But I hope it fits with your understanding of Polish English anyhow. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to share some of our thinking around cloud computing. And by the way, anyone who loves viruses, not the type of viruses that I have been meeting, but the viruses that hit your gadgets, your computers, and so on. No one? Some people make business of it, so they should love it. But no, most of us doesn't like viruses. And there's a very good way to avoid computer viruses, and that is not to use computers. And would anyone here consider not to live with internet to get rid of viruses? No, I assume so. I assume that to most of us, internet has become extremely important in our everyday life. And some services, like the presentation before mine about Facebook, is really success stories. This was a fabulous story. I really liked what we learned. A lot of good learnings for doing business on the internet, and particularly in social media. Facebook is extremely successful. It has reached 800 million people. Sounds great. But in fact, it's just a little more than 10% of the global population. And if those 10% think that internet is crucial and empower them in their everyday life, you can imagine how many frustrated people around the earth who do not have proper access to internet feel that they are disadvantaged in the journey that this globe is doing now. So internet is really becoming the everyday life necessity. And that is what my presentation is about. So there is a unique opportunity as society is going internet, as individuals is going internet, as businesses is going internet, as governments are going internet. We need to include the whole society. And there is a number of barriers for this, and we need to address those barriers in order to make internet available to everybody. So, Ericsson has invested in an Indian startup company called Novatium, and the reason why we invested in this company is that we think that they have really understood what the future of internet is about and what type of barriers we have to address and how we should address them with technology. This is a cloud technology, but Novatium had no clue that they were dealing with cloud when they started this innovation about 5-6 years ago. No one actually talked about cloud in these days, but just now it happened to be the most hip thing that we talk about in this industry. So it's a very down-to-earth innovation that I'm going to talk about that balance the interest of the service provider, the telco, the individual, the business, and the government. Because we need to balance these three stakeholders, otherwise we will not be able to mobilize the total earth. And we call this category PC as a service. It's basically a managed PC, but it can have any form factor. We'll come back to that. So it doesn't need to be a PC, but today PCs happen to be the most common way to access internet. And it's very tuned into the social change in societies around the world. And it's about empowering people, to allow people to grow as individuals, allow people to enjoy life, and to allow people to learn more. Because that is what internet is about. And the current situation gives an opportunity to provide a really superior experience, a convenient experience at a great value. Because convenience is a very, very important factor. Simplicity is a very important factor. And to some extent, I would say today is a very, very sad day. Because the guy who actually transformed this business and made it simple and available to many of us is not with us any longer. So we need to take Steve Jobs' heritage further and really fulfill his visions and his contribution to this industry and really prove that we are worthy heirs of that type of approach. So, there are three stakeholders. The first stakeholder is the telecom operator. That is the stakeholder who makes the investments in infrastructure. And infrastructure is a necessity for this to happen. If you don't have mobile broadband or fixed broadband, there's no way that you can get internet. And we rapidly, globally need to make sure that we have broadband everywhere, because people tend to be everywhere. And in order to have a sustainable business model, those investments in infrastructure need to give revenues and margins. And to some extent, it's also about having business models that fits with the needs, the ways that people manage money. And we've seen that the mobile industry, mobile telephony, has benefited enormously from a phenomenon called prepaid. A more cash-oriented way to pay for the service, more instantaneous way to pay for the service. And this solution is actually introducing prepaid into the internet and mobile broadband world as well. From a telco perspective, there are basically three ways that this hit their business. It's an opportunity for new revenues. It's an opportunity to improve the margins and therefore being able to invest further in infrastructure. And it's also a way to lower the operational cost and therefore also being able to offer these services even at the better prices. The trick is to make the desktop the marketplace. So the phenomena that we're talking about here is basically introducing the same philosophy as we have in shopping malls, like the one that we enjoy here today, in supermarkets and so on, to give an opportunity to actually monetize and create a marketplace where buyers and sellers meet. And this innovation is providing a monetized desktop with a prepaid wallet. It's a managed desktop, and it's also a relational desktop. We talked about social media. This is very, very much about relations between the service provider and the service consumer. This is a solution that might not fit everybody. There is a lot of people around the world who loves the concept of computers today because it gives a lot of freedom. You can be the first one on earth to install a new piece of software. You can actually produce your own software and install it in the system. But even if this is a huge group of people, it's not the majority of people on earth. And we can see that the more the internet matures, the higher proportion of users are actually looking for utility. So Novatum Navigator is not a sports car. It's more of a family car, a utility car that helps you to have a hassle-free experience on the internet. You don't need to do any software installations. You don't need to be afraid for viruses, and you don't need to maintain your computer. It's there when you need it, and you don't need to bother about it when you don't need it. Who are the targets? Anyone, any organization, any individual who needs and wants a utility. It could be public sector. The educational sector is particularly interesting. We see a lot of schools around the world that is struggling with their current computer solutions. Often schools lack IT expertise on the local arena, and most solutions existing today requires a lot of IT competence locally. Then the individual, maybe a household, maybe a single individual that really enjoys to don't bother about the computer, but to have the power of a computer without having the problems of a computer. And then finally, but not least, small businesses, medium-sized businesses that cannot benefit from the solutions that is designed for the large multinationals. A lot of organizations today have managed computers. There are two problems with those solutions. They are pretty expensive and they are very complex because the computers from the beginning was not designed for a managed environment. So there is a lot of add-ons on top of them. And this is a solution that from the very, very beginning is designed to be a cost-efficient managed environment. So what it gives to the user is a totally hassle-free computing experience. A utility like the fridge, the freezer, the car, which just works day after day, year after year, and you don't need to bother about it. It starts up in 5 seconds. It's good balance between future and legacy because it supports multiple operating systems. So you can having Windows applications running next to Unix applications, next to HTML5 applications at the same time. There's guaranteed no viruses in the client. It's even theoretically impossible. Of course, the servers that is supporting it could be hit by viruses, but they are managed by professionals. But the client as such, the device which is in the home or the office, cannot be hit by a virus. It improves battery life. It uses the hardware more efficiently. It uses the network more efficiently. It performs YouTube much better than any other solution on a public network. It has a very fast browser, and it's very great to look upon it next to a traditional PC and see how it outperforms. And it's totally 100% management free for the user, the owner. So it's a low upfront cost. Novatium or Ericsson is not in the client hardware business. We use partners here. So any innovation that brings down cost on the hardware, the client hardware is of course great. And maybe you've heard now that India has innovated and produced a $35 tablet. So we are very, very much for this type of innovation that can bring down the cost also for the hardware, because often the hardware is the first barrier that people encounter around the world. $100 or $200 is a lot of money for many. Then it's a very reasonable subscription model. So this is not the hardware business, this is not the software business, this is actually a service business. So the similarities are quite big with what we can see on cable TV or satellite TV. You subscribe for those channels, that content, those applications that you want to. If you don't want it any longer, you just take away a cross in your menu, and then you don't need to pay for that application any further. And it's typically always bundled with a broadband. And that bundle is also very interesting because that gives the opportunity for the service provider to have a one phone number, one chat contact for the whole value chain, end to end. So regardless if there's a challenge with the client hardware, client software, the network, or the servers, the service, it's one phone number that you call, and that point of contact can help you with all the problems in a very accurate way because the management system is managing the whole value chain. So from a user perspective, it's about the superior experience, a truly convenient computer experience, and at very good value. You get a lot for the money. Actually, this solution costs less than a normal virus protection program. And the marketplace, the desktop was an advantage for the service provider. It's equally an advantage for the user because you can totally customize jointly the desktop based on what type of subscription and what type of freedom and what type of simplicity you want as a user. So the desktop is really balanced between the interest of the user and the interest of the service provider. And it's a solution which is extremely lean on the usage of internet capacity. So it doesn't take any detours on internet. It utilizes the bandwidth efficiently, and therefore it can deliver more user experience for a given bandwidth, for a given network than any existing solution. And it's also a preparations for the future. Yes, today we talk about a managed PC, a computer, but in reality it's a cloud desktop. And that desktop, sorry, a little too fast here. That desktop can be presented and delivered on any form factor. On a smartphone, on a tablet, on a laptop, on a desktop, or on your 60-inch flat screen TV at home. And for those people going forward that actually think that it's important to access exactly the same service on their smartphone, which they bring 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because of the convenience, it fits in the pocket on the purse. But at the same time also sometimes want the full power of a large screen, a convenient keyboard, the full-fledged power of a computer, or somewhere in between with a tablet in the TV sofa. It will be the same environment. So the days is gone where you have to transfer your files between one system and another system. You will have all what you need, all what you consume in one place with one service provider, one point of contact, and it will simplify and empower you as an individual or as an organization. This is what Novatum Navigator is about. And thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to present here today. And we are very happy, of course, between Ericsson and yourself to meet and discuss this further. I think this is just the start of a journey. We hope for more competitors because this is a huge market and it's actually benefiting the society, the more organizations that joins this journey, because we need this from a global perspective. As we said, 800 million users of Facebook is fantastic, but there is 5.2 more billion people that do not have Facebook today, and not many of them have even access to internet at all. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Wish you a really great conference, and I'm happy to meet you in between the sections here. A pleasure. Thank you.